Hey guys, I wanted to take another look at a video I made a couple years ago, entitled A Bittersweet Ending. In the video, I didn't talk about what the last scene of the story will be, because I have no idea how the story will end, but rather I talked about what the story is and isn't. This isn't some story where the bad guys win and the good guys lose, and that's just that. As I stated before, in A Song of Ice and Fire, when good guys mess up, they die. When bad guys mess up, they also die. There are as many dead bad guys in this series as there are dead good guys, and it is nowhere near as nihilistic as critics like to claim. In my original video, I talked about how Jon Snow and Daenerys Targaryen would sit the Iron Throne, with Tyrion Lannister as their hand. Afterwards, everyone seemed to have an issue with my Disney movie, fairy tale, and lovey-dovey nonsense of an ending. Two major Song of Ice and Fire YouTubers had lines in their next videos about how the series was going to end in dark and terrible ways. One even mentioned Lord of the Rings like I did, but somehow took it in a different direction. But since I made that video, Tyrion Lannister has become hand. Jon Snow has become a king. And given some of the details from a possible leaked script and leaked photos from the set, well, let's just say, I get a lot less criticism on that front. Now I want to talk about the House of the Undying, because that's where the idea that Jon and Daenerys will get together comes from, as well as some other theories. It's where you get more evidence that Rhaegar and Lyanna was a love affair, and not the kidnapping and raping business King Robert talked about. Evidence that Stannis Baratheon is not Azor Ahai reborn, though in my opinion, he will sit the Iron Throne at some point in the books, unlike in the show. Evidence that young Griff is a fake. Evidence for my theory that Victarion Greyjoy and his death has something to do with the dragon. Evidence for my theory that I didn't think would be controversial at the time, that Daenerys would unite all the Khalasars and fulfill the stallion who mounts the world prophecy with Drogon as her stallion. And of course, another theory that I didn't think would be controversial, that Jon Snow and Daenerys would end up together. One of the visions Daenerys saw in the House of the Undying was of a blue flower growing in a chink in a wall of ice, filling the air with sweetness, before the Undying call her Mother of Dragons, Bride of Fire. The blue flower is a reference to Lady Lyanna Stark. The wall of ice is the wall. Those two details are a reference to the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who is the son of Lyanna Stark. Sweetness also implies attraction. Though taken together, these three details are likely a reference to Jon Snow's cold dead body being preserved inside the wall. Concerning, but we all know that he will shake it off. And if Jon Snow has some kind of connection to fire, like a father who's a Targaryen prince, then that prophecy suggests that Daenerys will not only be his lover, but his bride. Recently, there's a theory I've seen gaining prominence that's always been in the back of my mind, but I've never fully accepted because Daenerys' story is such a difficult one to make endgame predictions on. And that theory is that Jon Snow will sacrifice Daenerys, willingly, to forge Lightbringer. It is generally agreed that Jon Snow is Azor Ahai, and he will need his niece Anissa. Similarly, I know a lot of fans believe that Stannis won't have anything to do with Shireen's death in the books, but Stannis believes himself to be Azor Ahai, and part and parcel of that story is sacrificing the person you care about the most. So I do think that Stannis will make that fateful decision, and it won't be Melisandre doing it on her own at the wall. It will happen much later in the story, when Stannis is much closer to the Iron Throne. But Jon Snow, actually being Azor Ahai, will have to sacrifice the person he cares about the most, to save the world from the threat of the others, and will have to live with that decision. And although I'm certain that Daenerys may one day be the person Jon cares about the most, it makes more sense to me that he would sacrifice the person he already cares about the most. The great theme of Arya's storyline is death. Over the course of the story, she goes from being a worshipper of death.
He's not my one true God.
No? Who's yours?
Death.
To an instrument of death. And her being the person Azor Ahai Reborn cares about the most, and her being an instrument of death, well, it just makes sense. that Jon Snow could go from giving her a sword to making her one. It doesn't help that she's returning to Winterfell just in time for the White Walker invasion in the show. On the other hand, Salladhor Saan's Azor Ahai story in the books talks of leaving a crack across the face of the moon, which could be a reference to Daenerys being sacrificed, or even the dragons themselves being Lightbringer. In the original outline for the series, though, George R.R. Martin states that both Daenerys and Arya survived the series, and the ending of the series probably hasn't changed as drastically as other parts of the outline, so maybe we're all just way off base. In any event, I still maintain that A Song of Ice and Fire isn't going to have some crazy ending like Littlefinger on the Iron Throne or the White Walkers killing everyone. The realm will likely come to relative peace and prosperity, but at great cost. We are likely to see a lot of broken characters, uneasy compromises that put the human heart in conflict with itself, and lead to both the bitter and the sweet part of a bittersweet ending. So like, comment, subscribe, share, check out my other videos. I'll be back with more videos soon.